everyone. If you enjoy my channel, please support me with one like, one subscribe, and one share.
The shower question. Imagine you're standing in the shower, hot water running down your back, and suddenly a thought hits you so hard you forget how soap works. Here it is. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was actually the best thing disguised in sweatpants and 3 weeks of crying? Welcome to my story. In the next 90 minutes, I'm going to tell you something most people whisper about behind closed doors, but never say out loud. I divorced my husband, we have 2 kids. We live in America. And no, this is not a tragedy. This is the happiest ending I never saw coming. So if you're stuck right now, stuck in an English learning rut, stuck in a relationship that feels like wearing shoes to sizes too small, stuck in the belief that you've already failed at life, stay with me. Because by the time we finish this slow English story together, you won't just understand new words and phrases. You'll understand why giving up might be the smartest thing you've ever done. But let me start at the very beginning. The part that still makes me laugh when I think about it. Picture a young woman, 24 years old, fresh off a plane from a small town where the biggest adventure was arguing with the mango vendor. That woman was me. I landed in the United States with 2 suitcases, a tourist visa that was about to expire, and a heart so full of hope it was practically leaking out of my ears. I believed in the American dream the way children believe in Santa Claus, completely, illogically, and with a list of demands. I met my ex-husband. Let's call him Mark because that's his name. And he doesn't watch my videos. Thankfully, at a coffee shop in Seattle, he spilled his latte on my notebook. I yelled at him in broken English. He apologized in perfect English. And somehow, between the puddles of oat milk and my terrible pronunciation of the word napkin, we fell in love. We got married 6 months later. My mother cried on the phone from across the ocean. She didn't cry because she was happy. She cried because she knew something I didn't. She knew that love in a foreign country is like learning a new language. You think you're fluent until someone asks you to say refrigerator at 3 in the morning when you're exhausted and all you can remember is the word for cold box in your mother tongue. But I was young, stubborn, and convinced that hard work could fix anything. Sound familiar? That's the lie we all tell ourselves, isn't it? The lie that if we just try harder, study longer, repeat the English sentence one more time, everything will click into place. Here's what they don't tell you about learning English through real life. Real life doesn't have subtitles. Real life doesn't pause. And you don't understand the word co-parenting or mediation or irreconcilable differences. And real life definitely doesn't care that you studied grammar for 5 years before you realize that Americans say gonna instead of going to, and wanna instead of want to, and that your perfectly constructed sentences make you sound like a robot from a 1990s textbook. So there I was, 7 years into marriage, 2 beautiful children, a boy named Leo, 6, and a girl named Maya. I ran a house in the suburbs with a lawn. I secretly hated mowing, and my marriage was dying. Not with a bang. Not with a dramatic fight where someone throws a vase. It was dying the way a houseplant dies when you forget to water it for months. Slowly, quietly, until one day you look at it and think, wait, was it always this brown? Mark and I stopped talking. Not the kind of stopping where you run out of things to say. The kind where you have so much to say that saying nothing feels safer. He would come home from work, kiss the kids, eat dinner in front of the TV, and fall asleep on the couch. I would clean the kitchen, cry in the bathroom, and practice English phrases to myself like we need to talk. And I don't feel loved anymore and maybe we should see a counselor. But I never said them out loud, because saying them out loud would make it real. And making it real meant admitting that I had failed. Failed at marriage. Failed at the American dream. Failed at being the woman my mother warned me about becoming. Do you know what that feels like? To be so afraid of failure that you choose numbness instead. That's exactly what happens when you're learning English too. You get stuck in what I call the intermediate plateau. That horrible grey zone where you understand enough to know you're making mistakes but not enough to fix them. You've been studying for months, maybe years. You can read a menu. You can ask for directions. But when someone asks you a simple question like how was your weekend, your brain freezes, your mouth opens, and nothing comes out except a small, pathetic sound that resembles a dying whale. That was me at year 7 of my marriage. I understood the problem perfectly. I just couldn't find the words to solve it. Then one night, something shifted. Leo, my son, was crying in his room. I went to check on him. He was 6 years old, sitting on his bed with his knees pulled to his chest. And he said something in English that I will never forget. He said, "Mommy, why don't you and Daddy talk anymore? Did I do something wrong?" And in that moment, I realized the most terrifying truth of my life. My silence wasn't protecting my children. It was hurting them. My fear of ending my marriage was teaching them that love means suffering. That staying quiet is better than speaking up. That a happy ending only exists in movies, not in real life, and certainly not for someone who still confuses sheep and ship when she speaks too fast. That night, I made a decision. I decided to stop pretending, and that decision, scary, messy, completely un-American in its lack of optimism, turned out to be the first real step toward everything I have today. So here's my question for you. The one I asked at the very beginning. What if the thing you're most afraid of losing is actually the thing that's been keeping you stuck? What if letting go of a marriage, of a dream, of the way you've been trying to learn English for years without results isn't failure? What if it's the bravest, smartest, most loving thing you could ever do for yourself? Stick with me through this story. I promise you, by the end, you won't just know how to say divorce and co-parent and happy ending in slow, clear English. You'll know how to live them. Now let me take you to the moment when everything fell apart, and then, slowly, beautifully, put itself back together again. The American dream crash. You know what's hilarious in a dark, cosmic sort of way? The American dream doesn't come with an instruction manual. Nobody tells you that the Statue of Liberty is beautiful from the ferry, that her torch won't light up your living room when you're crying at 2 in the morning because you can't afford the heating bill. I arrived in Seattle with $200 in my pocket, a heart full of hope, and an English vocabulary that could politely order coffee. I could not, under any circumstances, argue with a landlord about a broken dishwasher. My first apartment was a studio the size of a walk-in closet. The carpet smelled like regret. The neighbor above me played the drums at midnight, and every single night, I sat on my inflatable mattress and practiced the same sentence out loud. I am happy. I am in America. I am living my dream. Spoiler alert. I was not happy. I was terrified. But terror, when you're an immigrant, looks exactly like determination if you squint hard enough. So I worked at a nail salon where my hands were constantly wet and my coworkers spoke Vietnamese, which was great for my comfort level, but terrible for my English. I worked at a daycare where the children called me the lady who says wait too much. I worked at a grocery store bagging items, and an old man once told me, "Your English is so cute." And I smiled because I thought cute was a compliment. It is not a compliment when you are 24 years old and trying to be taken seriously. Then I met Mark. Mark was an engineer. He wore glasses. He had a steady job, a car that started every morning, and a mother who asked me, at our very first dinner, "So what do your parents do back in your country?" As if my parents were exotic zoo animals. I loved him anyway. Or maybe I loved the idea of stability. The idea of someone who could explain the difference between health insurance deductible and copay without making me feel stupid. The idea of a green card that didn't depend on an employer who might fire me for saying schedule wrong. We got married at City Hall. I wore a white dress from Target. He wore a blue suit he'd had since college. We signed papers, we took photos. We ate dinner at a diner where the waitress wrote congratulations on our receipt in ketchup. And I thought, this is it. This is the beginning of my real American life. For the first 2 years, it was good. Not movie montage good, but good enough. Mark taught me how to pronounce th without biting my tongue. I taught him how to cook rice without burning it. We argued about which way the toilet paper should hang. We made up by watching terrible reality TV and laughing at people who argued louder than us. I got pregnant with Leo, then Maya, and somewhere between the diaper changes and the sleepless nights and the PTA meetings where I understood about 60% of what the other parents were saying, I stopped being the immigrant and started being just another tired mom. That should have been a victory, right? Assimilation, integration, the dream coming true. But here's the secret nobody tells you about achieving your dream. Sometimes you get exactly what you wanted, and it still doesn't feel like enough, or worse, it feels like a cage. A very comfortable, air-conditioned suburban cage with a 2-car garage and a lawn that needs mowing every Saturday. Mark and I stopped having real conversations somewhere around year 4. By year 6, we were speaking to each other the way you speak to a customer service robot, polite, efficient, and completely empty. Can you pick up milk? Yes. Did you sign the permission slip? Yes. Do you still love me? Silence. That question never got asked, because we both knew the answer, and neither of us wanted to hear it out loud. The American dream crashed for me not because I lost my job or my house or my children. It crashed because I looked in the mirror one morning, and I didn't recognize the woman staring back. She had wrinkles around her eyes from smiling at Mark's jokes that weren't funny anymore. She had gray hairs from worrying about money that we actually had enough of. She had a permanent small smile plastered on her face, the I'm fine smile. The everything is fine smile. The smile that says please don't ask me any real questions because I might fall apart. And her English was perfect now, fluent. No accent that anyone could place. She could say refrigerator at 3 in the morning without stumbling. She could argue with the school principal about the dress code. She could even tell jokes that made Americans laugh at the right moments. But she had forgotten how to say one small, important sentence in any language. I'm not okay. Do you know what that feels like? To be so good at pretending that you fool everyone, including yourself? That's the dark side of learning English through life. You become a chameleon. You change colors so often that you forget what your original color was. And one day you wake up and realize you've been speaking someone else's language, living someone else's dream. And somewhere along the way, you lost the map back to yourself. Mark felt it too. I know he did. He started coming home later. Not because he was having an affair, I checked. And the most exciting thing in his phone was a fantasy football league. He came home later because home had become a museum of our past happiness. Every room held a memory of a couple who used to laugh, used to touch, used to believe that love could survive anything except maybe the slow, quiet rot of two people growing in opposite directions. The divorce didn't happen overnight. It happened over 18 months of couples therapy, where we sat on a beige couch and told a stranger named Dr. Patricia that we still care about each other about 40 times. Dr. Patricia finally looked at us one session and said something I will never forget. She said, "Sometimes caring isn't enough. Sometimes love means letting go before you start to hate each other." Mark cried. I cry. We both knew she was right. So here's the part that still surprises me when I tell this story. The day we decided to divorce was not the worst day of my life. It was actually, weirdly, the first day I felt hope in years. Because deciding to end something broken isn't failure. It's the moment you stop lying. And stopping lying feels like taking off a pair of shoes that have been 2 sizes too small for 8 years. It hurts. Your feet are swollen. You might never wear heels again. But oh my God, the relief of being barefoot on cold tile, that relief is worth everything. By year 8, the marriage was over. The dream I had chased across an ocean had turned into something I no longer wanted. And I had no idea what came next. I only knew one thing. I had 2 children who needed me to be honest, brave, and maybe a little bit crazy. The silent war. Here's a fun fact about the human brain. At your high school biology teacher definitely forgot to mention. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a tiger chasing you and your spouse sighing loudly from the other room. Biologically, chemically, your body reacts the same way. Cortisol spikes. Heart rate increases. Your muscles tense up like you're about to run a marathon or punch a wall or both. This is called the fight or flight response. And it's wonderful when you're actually being hunted by a saber-toothed cat. It's less wonderful when you're sitting at the dinner table with your husband, your two children, and a casserole that nobody wants to eat because the silence is so thick you could spread it on toast. That was our life for 6 months after we decided to divorce. Before we figured out how to actually do it. 6 months of living in the same house, sleeping in separate rooms and pretending to the outside world that everything was fine. 6 months of what I now call the silent war. And let me tell you, a war fought without words is the most exhausting kind of war there is. Every morning started the same way. I would wake up at 6, make breakfast for Leo and Maya, pack their lunches, and put on my happy mom face. Mark would wake up at 6:30, shuffle into the kitchen in his old bathrobe, pour coffee, and sit at the opposite end of the table. We didn't say good morning. We didn't say anything. The children, bless their tiny, perceptive hearts, would eat their cereal and look back and forth between us like they were watching a tennis match where nobody ever hit the ball. Leo, who was 6, started having nightmares. He would wake up screaming at in the morning, and when I went to comfort him, he would grab my arm and whisper, "Mommy, are you and Daddy fighting?" And I would say, "No, baby, we're not fighting." And technically, that was true. We weren't fighting. Fighting requires to people who still care enough to raise their voices. We were beyond fighting. We were in the cold, dead zone of two people who had given up on each other but hadn't yet figured out how to live apart. Have you ever been in that zone? Maybe not with a spouse, but with a goal, with learning English. You study, you practice, you repeat the same phrases over and over, and nothing changes. You're not failing dramatically, you're just stuck. And being stuck is worse than failing because failing at least gives you a reason to stop. Being stuck gives you nothing except the slow, grinding certainty that tomorrow will be exactly like today. That's how Mark and I lived for 6 months. Exactly like today. Exactly like yesterday. Exactly like the day before. The only difference was the weather. Maya, my 4-year-old, stopped talking at preschool. Her teacher called me in for a conference. She said, "Maya used to be so chatty. Now she just sits in the corner and draws pictures of houses with no doors." I took those pictures home. I looked at them, and I saw my daughter drawing our life a house with no way in and no way out. That was the moment I realized the silent war wasn't just killing my marriage. It was killing my children's sense of safety. Psychologists call this emotional contagion. It's the reason you feel anxious when you walk into a room where two people have just been arguing. It's the reason babies cry when their parents yell. Children absorb the emotional atmosphere of their home like little sponges, and they don't have the vocabulary or the brain development to understand what's happening. All they know is that something is wrong, and because they're children, they assume they caused it. Every night, I would put Maya to bed, and she would ask me the same question. "Mommy, are you sad?" And every night, I would lie. "No, baby, I'm fine." But here's the thing about lying to children: they always know. They don't know the words for what they know, but they know. Maya started wetting the bed again. Leo started biting his nails until they bled, and I started having panic attacks in the bathroom while the shower was running so nobody could hear me cry. Mark was having his own version of this breakdown. He was losing weight. He was zoning out at work. His boss, a well-meaning man named Dave, pulled him aside and asked if everything was okay at home. Mark said yes. Dave didn't believe him. Nobody believed us, because on the outside, we still looked like the perfect immigrant success story. Beautiful children. Nice house, 2 cars. A dog. We had the dog to a golden retriever named Sunny who, I swear, also looked depressed. Even the dog was sad. That's how bad it was. One night, around month 4 of the silent war, I couldn't sleep. I got up at midnight, went to the kitchen and stood in front of the refrigerator with the door open just to feel the cold air on my face. Mark came in behind me. He didn't say anything. He just opened the freezer, took out a pint of ice cream and handed me a spoon. We ate ice cream in silence at midnight, standing in the light of the refrigerator, and for just a moment we almost smiled. Not because anything was funny, but because sharing a silent midnight ice cream felt like the most honest thing we had done in months. No pretending, no performance, just 2 exhausted people who used to love each other, standing in their kitchen, eating frozen sugar, because neither of them knew what else to do. I wanted to say something. I wanted to say, I miss you, or I'm sorry, or why is this so hard? But the words wouldn't come. My English was perfect now. Remember, I had all the vocabulary in the world, and I still couldn't say the one thing that mattered. Do you know that feeling when you've studied something for so long? English, a skill, a relationship, and you still freeze at the critical moment? That's not a language problem. That's a fear problem. And fear, unlike grammar, doesn't care how many flashcards you've memorized. The silent war ended on a Tuesday. Leo had another nightmare. But this time, when I went to his room, he wasn't crying. He was sitting up in bed with his arms crossed, looking exactly like a tiny, angry CEO about to fire someone. He looked at me and said, "Mommy, I heard you and Daddy talking last night. I heard you say the D word." I froze. The D word. Divorce. He had heard us whispering after we thought the children were asleep. And then Leo said something that broke me and put me back together at the same time. He said, "If you get a divorce, can we still have pizza on Fridays?" That's when I realized that children don't fear divorce the way adults do. They fear losing pizza. They fear losing the routine. They fear losing the small, predictable moments that make a family feel like a family. And that realization, that simple, obvious, heartbreaking realization, became the foundation for everything that came next. Because if Leo wasn't afraid of the word divorce, if he was only afraid of losing Friday pizza, then maybe Mark and I could give him both. Maybe we could end the marriage without ending the family. Maybe the silent war had been a choice all along. And maybe, just maybe, we could choose something different. The breaking point. Let me tell you about the weirdest scientific fact I learned during the worst year of my life. Ready? The human brain releases a chemical called oxytocin when you hug someone you love. But here's the kicker: your brain also releases oxytocin when you finally stop doing something that's been slowly killing you. Quitting a bad job, oxytocin. Leaving a toxic friendship, oxytocin. Ending a marriage that has turned into a museum of sadness. You guessed it, oxytocin. Your brain literally rewards you for letting go. Evolution wants you to survive, not to suffer. So why do we stay so long? Why did I stay 8 years when I knew by year 4 that something was wrong? Why do you stay up until 2 a.m. studying English flashcards when your brain checked out 3 hours ago? Why do humans cling to broken things like they're made of gold? The answer is something psychologists call sunk cost fallacy. It's a fancy term for a very stupid human habit. Imagine you buy a ticket to a movie for $20. 20 minutes in, you realize the movie is terrible, boring, painfully bad. Do you stay or do you leave? Most people stay because they already spent the $20. They don't want to waste it. But here's the truth: the $20 is gone whether you stay or leave. Staying doesn't get it back. Staying just makes you suffer for another hour and a half. That was my marriage. I had spent 8 years building a life in America. I had spent thousands of dollars on the wedding, a house, the furniture, the children's toys, the couple's therapy sessions with Dr. Patricia and her beige couch. I had spent my youth, my energy, my hope, and the thought of walking away felt like admitting that all of it was a waste. So I stayed. I stayed through the silent breakfasts. I stayed through the separate bedrooms. I stayed through Leo's nightmares and Maya's doorless houses. I stayed until staying became more painful than leaving. And that moment, the exact moment when the scale tipped, happened on a Thursday afternoon in October. The leaves were changing color outside my window. Classic American fall. Pumpkin spice everything. And I was sitting on the bathroom floor, fully dressed, with my back against a bathtub, trying to remember the last time I had laughed. Not a polite "that's funny" laugh. A real laugh. The kind where your stomach hurts and you snort and you can't stop. I couldn't remember. I literally could not remember the last time I had genuinely laughed. Think about that. A woman in her early 30s. To healthy children. A roof over her head. Food in the refrigerator. And she cannot remember laughter. That's not a marriage problem. That's a soul problem. That afternoon, I did something I had never done before. I called my mother. Not to ask for advice. My mother had been telling me to leave Mark for 3 years, and I had ignored her. I called her to say one sentence. "Mom, I think I'm ready." She didn't say "I told you so." She didn't say "finally." She said, "Good, now breathe." So I breathed, and then I stood up. And then I walked out of the bathroom, down the hallway, into the living room where Mark was watching football on the couch. I stood in front of the TV. He looked up at me, annoyed at first, then confused, then I swear relieved, like he had been waiting for me to say something for years, and now it was finally happening. I said, "We need to talk about the divorce, for real this time. No more silent war." Mark muted the TV. He put down his remote. He said, "Okay, just one word." But that one word sounded different from any okay he had ever said. It sounded like a door opening. That night, we talked for hours. For hours of raw, honest. Sometimes crying. Sometimes almost laughing. Sometimes just sitting in silence that wasn't hostile anymore. We talked about the children. We talked about money. We talked about the house. And then we talked about something we had never talked about before, what we actually wanted. Mark wanted to move to a smaller apartment near the water. He wanted to learn to fish. He wanted to stop pretending to be someone he wasn't. I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to start a YouTube channel about learning English through real stories. I wanted to stop pretending that I was fine when I was drowning. And the most miraculous thing happened. The more we talked, the more we realized we weren't enemies. We were just two people who had made a mistake. A beautiful, well-intentioned, -1-year-long mistake that had given us two incredible children and 1,000 memories, and a friendship that might actually survive if we stopped trying to force it to be something else. Dr. Patricia had been right. Sometimes love means letting go before you start to hate each other. Mark and I were nowhere near hate. We were tired, we were sad, we were disappointed. But we didn't hate each other. And that small, precious ember of non-hatred, that was the seed of everything that came next. I want you to understand something important here. The breaking point is not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a Thursday afternoon on a bathroom floor. Sometimes it's a quiet conversation in a living room while football plays silently on TV. Sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is say "I'm ready" in a small, tired voice, and then breathe. For those of you watching this because you're stuck in your English learning journey, let me tell you what this has to do with you. You have a sunk cost fallacy too. You've spent months, maybe years, studying English the wrong way. Boring textbooks, repetitive apps, grammar exercises that make you want to throw your phone across the room. And you stay because you've already spent so much time. You don't want to waste it. But here's the truth: that time is already gone. Staying with a method that doesn't work is not loyalty, it's masochism. The breaking point for your English is not more studying. It's not more flashcards. It's not more apps that promise fluency in 3 months. The breaking point is a decision to try something new. A decision to learn English through stories that actually matter to you. Stories about love, divorce, parenting, failure, and happy endings that don't look like the movies. That's why I'm making this video. Not to teach you grammar rules, not to give you vocabulary lists, but to show you that language lives inside real life, inside bathroom floors and silent walls and midnight ice cream. Inside the word okay that sounds like a door opening. The day after our 4-hour conversation, Mark and I went to see a lawyer. Not a mean, fighting lawyer, a mediator, a woman named Susan, who specialized in collaborative divorce. Susan looked at us across her desk and said, "I've been doing this for 20 years. Most couples who sit in those two chairs are ready to kill each other. You two are different. You're already on the same team. We were on the same team. The team of Leo and Maya. The team of Friday Pizza. The team of two separate houses, but one united family. That was our breaking point. Not an explosion. A quiet, miraculous decision to stop fighting and start building something new. And that decision, my friend, is why I can say with absolute honesty that my divorce was the best thing that ever happened to me. Not because divorce is fun. It's not. But because hitting rock bottom taught me that rock bottom is actually solid ground. And from solid ground, you can build anything. The hardest conversation. Here's something nobody warns you about when you become a parent. The hardest conversations you will ever have are not with your boss, your spouse, or your mother-in-law. The hardest conversations are with small humans who still believe in the tooth fairy and think broccoli is a punishment. And the hardest of the hardest is this one. Mummy and daddy are not going to live together anymore. How do you say that in English? How do you say that in any language? I practiced for 2 weeks. I wrote scripts, I threw them away. I wrote new scripts. I cried on page 3, page 7, page 12. I looked up articles online with titles like How to Tell Your Children About Divorce Without Destroying Their Childhood. Spoiler alert, those articles are written by people whose children are probably in therapy anyway. There is no perfect way. There is only honest way. Mark and I agreed on 3 rules before we sat the children down. Rule 1. We say it together. No pointing fingers. No blaming. Rule 2. We use simple English words. No irreconcilable differences. No, we grew apart. Just words a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old can hold in their tiny hands. Rule 3. We tell them what will stay the same, not just what will change. Because children, as I had learned from Leo's PISA question, care more about the constants than the variables. So one Saturday morning, after pancakes with too much syrup, he sat on the living room floor. Leo and Maya were coloring. Sunny, the depressed golden retriever, was sleeping in his bed. And Mark and I looked at each other, took a breath, and began. Mark spoke first. He said, "Leo, Maya, we have something important to talk about." Maya looked up. She had purple crayon on her nose. "Is it about Christmas?" she asked. "Not exactly," I said. And then I said the sentence I had practiced 200 times in the bathroom mirror. "Mommy and Daddy love you very much. That will never change. That we have decided that we will not be husband and wife anymore. We will still be your mommy and daddy. We will still take care of you. We will just live in different houses." Silence. The kind of silence that has a physical weight. You could feel it pressing down on the room like a heavy blanket. Leo stopped coloring. He looked at me, then at Mark, then back at me. His 6-year-old brain was working so hard I could almost hear the gears turning. Then he asked a question I had not prepared for. "Are you still going to be friends?" Mark answered before I could. He said, "Yes, we are going to be friends. We are going to work together to take care of you." That's called co-parenting. It's like being on the same team, even if we play in different stadiums. I almost laughed at the word stadium. Mark had never used a sports metaphor in his life. But it worked. Leo nodded slowly, like a tiny judge accepting evidence. Then Maya, who had gone back to coloring, said without looking up, "Can I still have my pink cup?" her pink cup, the cheap plastic cup with a scratch on the side that she had refused to drink from anything else for 2 years. That was her biggest concern. Not the divorce, not the 2 houses, the pink cup. Of course you can still have your pink cup. I said, okay. She said, and that was it. The hardest conversation of my life lasted about 4 minutes. For minutes. I had spent 2 weeks preparing for a conversation that took less time than a microwave burrito. Here's what I learned that day. Children are not fragile the way we think they are. They are not little glass statues that shatter at the first sign of trouble. They are more like rubber bands. They stretch, they bend, they snap back. What hurts children is not the truth. What hurts children is the silence, the secrets, the pretending, the years of watching their parents suffer in slow motion, or saying I'm fine through clenched teeth. That's what damages them. Not honest words spoken with love. After the conversation, we did something that became our new family tradition. We ordered pizza. Not because it was Friday, because it was Saturday. But Leo didn't care. He ate 3 slices and announced, "Divorce pizza tastes the same as regular pizza." Maya ate her pizza with her pink cup and said, "Can we get sprinkles next time?" Mark and I looked at each other across the table. And for the first time in months, we both smiled. Not a sad smile. Not a "we're doing this for the children" smile. A real smile. Because our children were okay. They were more than okay. They were eating pizza and talking about sprinkles. And Mark and I had just done something incredibly hard. We had told the truth. And the world did not end. You know how rare that is. How many marriages stay together because the parents are too afraid to have this conversation. How many people stay in jobs, stay in cities, stay in entire lives they hate because they're afraid of the 4-minute conversation that might change everything. I'll tell you the number. It's most people. Most people choose the familiar pain over the unfamiliar freedom. They choose the silent war over the scary conversation. They choose the bathroom floor over the living room. And I don't blame them. I really don't. Fear is not weakness. Fear is your brain trying to protect you. Your brain doesn't know that the thing you're afraid of, divorce, quitting, failing, speaking English with an accent in public, might actually be the door to something better. Your brain only knows that change is dangerous. That's why you need stories. Not grammar rules, not vocabulary lists. Stories of people who walked through the fear and found something on the other side. That's why I'm giving you right now my story. My 4-minute conversation. My divorce pizza. The week after that Saturday, something shifted in our house. The silent war ended. Not with a truce, with an actual peace. Mark and I started talking again. Real talking. About schedules. About school pickups. About who would take the dog on weekends. We agreed to share Sunny. But Sunny looked equally unhappy in both houses. So it didn't really matter. And we started using a phrase that became our co-parenting superpower. Let me check with your dad. Let me check with your mom. That phrase, so simple, so obvious, changed everything. Because it signaled respect. It signaled that we were still a team, even if we weren't a couple. Every time I said, "Let me check with your dad," I was telling my children that their father's opinion mattered. Every time Mark said, "Let me check with your mom," he was telling them that my voice counted. We were modeling something more important than a happy marriage. We were modeling a healthy separation. And here's the part that still blows my mind. Within a month, Leo stopped having nightmares. Maya stopped wetting the bed. They started sleeping through the night. They started laughing again. Real laughing. The kind I couldn't remember doing myself. They were healing. Not because we were perfect parents. Because we were honest parents. And honesty, it turns out, is the best medicine for almost everything. Including learning English. Especially learning English. Because the reason you're stuck is not your vocabulary. It's not your grammar. It's not your accent. The reason you're stuck is that you're afraid to sound stupid. You're afraid to make mistakes. You're afraid of the 4-minute conversation where you say something wrong and the other person looks at you with that pity smile that says, "Oh, you try." I was afraid of that too. For years. I was afraid to speak up in parent-teacher conferences. I was afraid to correct the waitress when she brought the wrong order. I was afraid to tell my husband that I was unhappy. Fear is the silent war we fight inside our own heads. And the only way to end it is the same way I ended my marriage. You sit down. You take a breath. And you say the hard thing. In simple words. With love. The co-parenting experiment. Here's the thing about co-parenting. That every Instagram influencer gets wrong. It's not about being best friends who hold hands and sing Kumbaya at drop-off. It's not about fake smiling through birthday parties and pretending the divorce never happened. That's not co-parenting. That's a performance. Real co-parenting is much messier, much weirder, and much more boring than anyone wants to admit. Real co-parenting is a shared Google Calendar with 17 color-coded reminders. Real co-parenting is text messages that say Leo has a doctor's appointment on Tuesday at 3 p.m. Don't forget his insurance card, and Maya left her favorite stuffed rabbit in your car. Please put it in the mailbox. And I'm going to be 10 minutes late because the traffic on the I-5 is a nightmare from hell. Real co-parenting is not romantic. It is not inspiring. It is not the stuff of Hollywood movies. But real co-parenting, when you do it right, is the closest thing to a miracle I have ever experienced. Mark and I started our co-parenting experiment the week after we told the children. We had no idea what we were doing. There was no manual. There was no class we could take. There was just two exhausted people who had spent 8 years learning how to fail at marriage and now had to learn how to succeed at separation. We made mistakes. So many mistakes. The first week, I forgot to pack Maya's pink cup in her overnight bag. Mark had to drive 20 minutes back to my house to get it. The second week, Mark forgot to give Leo his allergy medicine, and Leo spent the entire weekend sneezing so hard his kindergarten teacher asked if he was sick. The third week, we double-booked the same Saturday afternoon. I had signed Leo up for a soccer game. Mark had signed Leo up for a friend's birthday party. We both refused to cancel. Leo ended up doing neither because he was so stressed about choosing between us. He faked a stomachache. That was our lowest moment. Not the divorce, not the silent war. A stomachache caused by a scheduling conflict. Mark and I sat in my kitchen that Saturday afternoon, while Leo watched cartoons in the other room, and we had the most ridiculous argument of our entire relationship. Mark said, "You should have checked the calendar before you signed him up." I said, "You should have told me about the party at the last parent-teacher conference." He said, "You're being unreasonable." I said, "You're being inflexible." And then we both stopped, because we sounded exactly like the married couple we had promised ourselves we would never become again. We were fighting, really fighting, over a 6-year-old's social calendar. Mark put his head in his hands. I stared at the ceiling. And then Mark said something that changed everything. He said, "This is harder than I thought." I said, "Me too." And just like that, the fight dissolved. Not because we solved the problem, because we admitted that the problem was not the problem. The problem was that we were both scared. Scared of being replaced. Scared of being forgotten. Scared that our children would love the other parent more. Every scheduling conflict was really a fear conflict dressed up in a cheap disguise. So, we made a new rule. The golden rule of co-parenting. Whenever we disagreed about something related to the children, we would ask ourselves one question. Is this about Leo and Maya? Or is this about my ego? And if it was about ego, we would drop it. Immediately. No negotiation. No justification. Just drop it and move on. That rule saved us. Not slowly. Over years. Immediately. Overnight. The next time we disagreed about a weekend plan, I asked myself the question. It was about my ego. I dropped it. The next time Mark wanted to change the pickup time, he asked himself the question. It was about his ego. He dropped it. Within a month, Our conflicts went from daily to weekly. Within 2 months, from weekly to monthly. Within 3 months, we had our first entire week with 0 arguments. Not because we agreed on everything, because we had learned to let go of the things that didn't matter. And here's the beautiful, unexpected side effect. The more we let go of small conflicts, the more we started to enjoy each other's company again. Not as a couple, as friends, as teammates, as to people who had once loved each other and now, weirdly, liked each other again. We started having dinner together, sometimes the 4 of us, plus Sunny the dog, at a pizza place near the park. Not every week, just sometimes. And those dinners were not sad. They were not awkward, they were actually kind of nice. Leo would tell Mark about his soccer game. Maya would show me a drawing she made at school. Mark and I would talk about work, about our separate lives, about nothing in particular. We were not pretending to be a family. We were being a different kind of family. A family that had broken apart and then, somehow, rebuilt itself in a new shape. Psychologists call this family resilience. It's the ability of a family system to adapt to change without falling apart. And the number one predictor of family resilience after divorce is not money, not therapy, not even how much the parents like each other. The number one predictor is something much simpler. Consistency, predictability, the small, boring routines that make children feel safe. Friday pizza, Sunday morning pancakes, the same pink cup in the same spot in the kitchen. Mark and I became experts at consistency. We had the same drop-off time every Monday, the same bedtime routine at both houses, the same rules about screen time, about homework, about saying please and thank you. We even bought the same brand of toothpaste so the children wouldn't notice a difference. Was this exhausting? Yes. Was it worth it? Absolutely. Because within 6 months, Leo stopped asking if we were okay. Maya stopped drawing houses without doors. They started sleeping through the night. Every night. Without nightmares, without wetting the bed. They started thriving. And here's the part that still makes me emotional when I think about it. They started thriving not in spite of the divorce. They started thriving because of the divorce. Because the divorce ended the silent war. The divorce stopped the pretending. The divorce gave them to parents who could finally breathe again. Happy parents. Not perfect parents. Not wealthy parents. Just happy parents. And happy parents, it turns out, are the best thing you can give a child. Better than to parents who live together and hate each other. Better than a big house with a depressed dog. Better than any amount of money or stuff. Just to people who smile when they look at their children because they are no longer drowning. That was our co-parenting experiment. It didn't look like the movies. It looked like a shared Google Calendar and a golden rule about ego and Friday pizza with extra sprinkles. But it worked. It worked so well that after a year, Mark and I started doing something I never expected. We started laughing together again. Real laughing. The kind that makes your stomach hurt. At Leo's school play, when he forgot his line and shouted, "I have to go potty," into the microphone. Mark and I looked at each other and laughed so hard we cried. We weren't laughing as a married couple. We were laughing as to people who shared the same memory, the same joke, the same tiny human who had just announced his bathroom needs to 200 strangers. That laugh was a gift. A gift from the co-parenting experiment. A gift from letting go. A gift from choosing happiness over being right. And that gift, my friend, is available to you too. Not just in divorce, in English learning, in life. The moment you stop treating every small thing like a battlefield, you free up so much energy for joy. The moment you ask yourself, is this about my ego or about what actually matters? You unlock a superpower. Try it today. Try it with your English practice. Is your fear of making mistakes about protecting your ego? Or about actually learning? Drop the ego. Make the mistake, say the wrong word, sound stupid for 4 minutes. I promise you, the world will not end, and you might just discover, like I did, that the other side of fear is not danger, It's pizza with sprinkles. Cultural differences at Thanksgiving. Let me tell you about the first Thanksgiving after the divorce. I had been in America for almost 10 years at that point. 10 years of Thanksgiving dinners. 10 years of turkey, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie, and that weird green bean casserole that nobody actually likes but everyone pretends to enjoy. Because tradition is a powerful drug. I thought I understood Thanksgiving. I thought I had mastered this strange American holiday where you gather with people you may or may not like, eat until you cannot move, and then watch football while slowly entering a food coma. I was wrong, because the first Thanksgiving after the divorce taught me something that 10 years of marriage had not. It taught me that culture is not about food or holidays or words. Culture is about expectations. And expectations, my friend, are the silent assassins of happiness. Mark and I had agreed on the Thanksgiving plan 2 months in advance. The children would spend the morning with me. We would make pancakes shaped like turkeys. Then, at 2 o'clock, Mark would pick them up and take them to his parents' house for the main dinner. Simple, clear, written in the shared Google Calendar in bright orange. What could possibly go wrong? Everything could go wrong. Because my mother, who was visiting from my home country for the first time in 3 years, had her own expectations. In my culture, Thanksgiving is not a real holiday. We don't have turkeys. We don't have cranberry sauce. We don't have football. We have family. And family, in my culture, means everyone eats together at one table. Not to tables. Not to houses, not a schedule that splits the children in half like a wishbone. My mother looked at me the morning of Thanksgiving and said, "You're sending the children to his parents' house on a holiday, alone." I said, "Yes, Mom, that's the agreement." She said, "In our country, children stay with their mother on holidays, the father visits, or the father's family comes to you." I said, "Mom, this is not our country. This is America, and in America, we co-parent." She looked at me like I had just announced I was moving to Mars. And honestly, I understood her confusion. Because here's the truth about cultural differences that nobody puts in the pretty Instagram quotes. Culture is not just about language or food or holidays. Culture is about how you define family, how you define love, how you define success. In my home country, a successful family is one that stays together. Divorce is shameful. Divorced parents who share holidays, unheard of. In America, at least in my corner of America, successful family is one that functions, that adapts, that puts the children's well-being above the parents' egos. Neither culture is wrong. Neither culture is right. They are just different. And difference, when you're not expecting it, feels like a punch in the stomach. So there I was, Thanksgiving morning, in my small apartment. Maya was drawing a turkey with crayons. Leo was building a Lego tower. My mother was silently judging me from the kitchen, and Mark was about to arrive in 30 minutes to take the children away. I felt pulled in 3 directions. The direction of my birth culture, which said keep your children close. The direction of my adopted culture, which said co-parenting means sharing. And the direction of my own exhausted heart, which just wanted everyone to stop fighting, so I could eat some pumpkin pie in peace. Mark arrived at exactly 2 o'clock. He was wearing a sweater with a turkey on it. He had brought a container of his mother's famous stuffing as a gift for my mother. He smiled. He said, "Happy Thanksgiving." My mother took the stuffing. She did not smile back. This was going well. Leo and Maya ran to Mark with excitement. "Daddy, Daddy, we made pancakes shaped like turkeys." Mark hugged them. He looked at me. He looked at my mother. And then he did something I did not expect. Mark's parents were nice people, but they were also the people whose son I had divorced. The people who, I assumed, blamed me for the failure of the marriage. The people who probably whispered about the immigrant when I wasn't in the room. Going to their house for dessert was not in the Google Calendar. It was not in the agreement. It was not in any culture I knew. Mark said, "My mum made 3 pies, She always makes too much. And Leo wants to show you his Lego tower at Grandma's house. Leo tugged my sleeve. Please, Mommy, please. I looked at my mother. Her face was unreadable. She was processing. A divorced woman going to her ex-husband's parents' house for dessert. In our culture. That was insane. That was the plot of a bad telenovela. But my mother had lived in America for only 1 week. She had already seen things that challenge everything she believed. She had seen me laugh with Mark at the school play. She had seen the shared Google Calendar on my phone. She had seen Leo and Maya sleeping peacefully through the night in their beds. So she said something that I will never forget. She said, "Does your ex-mother-in-law make good pie?" Mark said, "The best apple pie in Seattle." My mother said, "Then let's go." That Thanksgiving dessert at Mark's parents' house was the strangest, most awkward, most wonderful 2 hours of my entire life. Mark's mother hugged me when I walked in. She actually hugged me. His father shook my mother's hand and said welcome to America in a voice that sounded like he meant it. Leo showed everyone his Lego tower. Maya ate 3 pieces of pie, and the 4 adults, me, my mother, Mark, and his parents sat around a table and talked about nothing important. The weather, the traffic, the new grocery store that opened on 4th Avenue. We did not talk about the divorce. We did not talk about who was wrong or who was right. We just ate pie. And at the end of the night, when I was putting on my coat to leave, Mark's mother pulled me aside and said something I will carry with me forever. She said, "You will always be Leo and Maya's mother. That means you will always be family. Even if you're not my daughter-in-law anymore." I cried in the car on the way home. Not sad tears. Confused tears. Grateful tears. Tears of a woman who had spent 10 years trying to fit into a culture that was not her own. Only to discover that culture is not a cage. Culture is a conversation, and conversations can change. Here's what this has to do with you and your English learning. You are probably stuck in your own cultural expectations about language. You think you have to speak perfectly. You think you have to sound like a native speaker. You think that making a mistake means you have failed. Those expectations are not helping you. They are the same as my mother's expectations about Thanksgiving, well-intentioned, rooted in love, but completely wrong for the situation you are in right now. The goal of learning English is not to erase your culture. The goal is not to become someone you are not. The goal is communication, connection, the ability to sit at a table, even a strange table, with strange pie, and strange people, and understand and be understood. That is all. My mother learned to love American Thanksgiving, not because she abandoned her culture, because she added a new one. She still makes our traditional holiday dishes at home, but now she also makes pumpkin pie, and she eats it with a fork, not chopsticks. And she smiles. Language works the same way. You do not have to give up your accent, your rhythms, your way of thinking. You just have to add English to your toolbox. Use it when you need it. Make mistakes. Laugh at yourself. Eat pie with people who might not understand everything you say but are trying anyway. That is the secret. That is the cultural difference that saved my Thanksgiving, my co-parenting, and my sanity. When I felt like giving up. Here's a dirty little secret about happy endings that nobody puts on their inspirational Pinterest boards. They don't happen linearly. You don't wake up one morning, decide to be happy, and then float through the rest of your life on a cloud of glitter and good vibes. That's not how brains work. That's not how hearts work. That's not how divorce works. And that's definitely not how learning English works. Happy endings happen in loops, in spirals, into steps forward and one step back that feels more like 50 steps back, and then a tiny shuffle that might, if you squint, look like progress. I want to tell you about the night I almost gave up on everything. Not on the divorce that was already done, not on co-parenting that was going surprisingly well, on myself, on the whole ridiculous experiment of being a single immigrant mother in America, with a YouTube channel that nobody was watching yet, a bank account that made me wince every time I opened the app, and a heart that was so tired of being brave that it just wanted to curl up in a ball and hibernate like a bear who had lost the will to eat honey. It happened on a Tuesday in February. The rainiest Tuesday Seattle has ever produced. Rain so aggressive it felt personal. Like the sky was angry at me specifically for something I couldn't remember doing. Mark had the children for the weekend, which meant my apartment was empty. No Lego towers, no pink cups, no small humans asking me for snacks every 17 seconds. Just me, a cold cup of tea, and a silence that was supposed to feel like freedom but instead felt like abandonment. I had been working on my YouTube channel for 3 months. 3 months of recording videos in my closet because the echo in my living room was terrible. 3 months of editing until 2 a.m. 3 months of watching the view count never go above 47, most of which were probably my mother clicking the link and then immediately calling me to say she didn't understand what I was talking about. I had made a video about co-parenting. A good video, I thought. Vulnerable, honest, funny in the places where funny was appropriate. I had used slow, clear English. I had told my story. I had done everything right. And nobody watched it. The algorithm ignored me. The internet shrugged. And I sat on my couch on that rainy Tuesday, scrolling through my phone, watching other people's videos get thousands of views. And I felt something I had not felt since the worst days of my marriage. I felt invisible, not just unseen. Invisible in the way that makes you question whether you exist at all. Have you ever felt that? Have you ever worked so hard on something, learning English, building a career, saving a relationship, and gotten absolutely nothing back except silence? That silence is not neutral. That silence is a punch. And after enough punches, you start to believe that the silence is telling you the truth. That you are not good enough, that you will never be good enough, that all the effort, all the courage, all the late nights and early mornings and bathroom floor conversations, none of it matters because you are fundamentally, irreparably, boringly average. I put my phone down. I lay down on the couch. I pulled a blanket over my head. And I did not move for 3 hours, not because I was sleeping, because I was giving up. Quietly. Completely, without drama or tears or a big speech. Just the slow, cold realization that I was tired of trying. That night, something strange happened. Around 10 o'clock, my phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. I ignored it again. Then it rang. Mark, calling me at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday, which he never did unless something was wrong with the children. I answered. Is everything okay? Everything's fine, he said. Leo just wanted to tell you something. There was a pause. Then Leo's voice, small and serious through the speaker. Mummy, I had a dream about you last night. You were flying like a superhero, but you didn't have a cape. You just flew because you were happy. I sat up on the couch, the blanket fell off my head. That's a beautiful dream, baby. Yeah, he said. I wanted to tell you because you looked sad in the dream before you started flying. But then you flew. So it was okay. He hung up. Mark didn't say anything else. He just texted me a few seconds later. He woke up crying because he was worried about you. I told him you're fine. Are you fine? I typed yes, and then deleted it. I typed I'm having a hard night, and then deleted that too. I typed nothing, and then I typed the truth. I almost gave up today. Mark's response came faster than I expected. Me too. Lots of days, you're not alone. That text, those 4 words did not fix anything. My video views were still low. My bank account was still thin. My apartment was still empty and raining outside. But something shifted. Because here's the science part that I promised you. Psychologists have studied what keeps people going when they want to give up. It's not willpower. It's not discipline. It's not even hope, exactly. It's connection, knowing that someone else sees you, Knowing that someone else has felt the same exhaustion and didn't die from it. Your brain releases oxytocin, yes. That same oxytocin from hugging and quitting when you feel understood. And oxytocin is the chemical antidote to the stress hormone cortisol. In other words, feeling seen literally calms your nervous system. It tells your body that you are safe, even when everything else is falling apart. Mark's text was my oxytocin. Leo's dream was my oxytocin. The knowledge that I was not alone in my tiredness, my invisibility, my almost giving up, that knowledge was enough to get me off the couch, not to conquer the world, just to brush my teeth, just to drink a glass of water, just to open my laptop and look at my video with fresh eyes. And here's what I saw when I looked. The video was not bad. It was actually good. But it was not great, because I had been trying to sound like someone I was not. I had been using perfect English, polite English, English that had been cleaned and ironed and sanitized of all my personality. I had been hiding, the same way I hid in my marriage, the same way I hid from the hard conversations, the same way I hid my accent and my culture, and my strange way of telling stories. I had made a video that was technically correct and emotionally invisible. That's why nobody watched. Not because I was not good enough, because I was not real enough. That night, I deleted the video. Not in a fit of rage. Calmly. Deliberately, I deleted it and I started over. I recorded a new video the next morning, in my closet, with messy hair, and no makeup, and a voice that sounded like me. With my accent, with my weird pauses, with the truth. I talked about the rainy Tuesday. I talked about the blanket over my head. I talked about almost giving up, and then I talked about why I didn't. I did not use perfect English. I used real English. The English of a tired immigrant mother who was still learning, still failing, still trying. That video got 12 views in its first week. Not a hit, but 5 of those views left comments, real comments. One person wrote, "I almost gave up on learning English today. Then I saw your video. Thank you for being real." Another wrote, "Your accent is beautiful. Don't hide it." Another wrote, "I cried. Not because you were sad, because you reminded me that I'm not alone." That was the moment I understood something that changed my entire life. Giving up is not the enemy. Giving up is information. It's your brain telling you that the current strategy is not working, and the correct response to "I want to give up" is not try harder. The correct response is try different. Be more yourself. Be less perfect. Be more honest. Be less invisible. The next time you feel like giving up on English, and you will. Because every learner does remember the rainy Tuesday. Remember the blanket over my head. Remember that the only thing that saved me was not a grammar rule or a vocabulary list. It was a 6-year-old's dream and a 4-word text from my ex-husband. Connection, authenticity, the courage to be seen, accent and all. That is the secret. Not more studying, more you. A new kind of love story. Here's a question that kept me awake for approximately 472 nights after my divorce. Am I ever going to love anyone again? Not the performative love of a marriage held together by obligation and shared Netflix passwords. Real love. The kind that makes you feel like your heart has grown an extra room you didn't know existed. The kind that doesn't ask you to shrink yourself to fit into someone else's expectations. The kind that looks at your messy, exhausted, slightly accented, to children, one depressed dog self, and says yes. This one. I choose this one. Society has a lot of opinions about divorced women and love. I'm sure you've heard them. She's damaged goods. She comes with baggage. She's too old, too tired, too complicated. Nobody wants a single mother with an ex-husband who still texts her about dentist appointments. And for a while, I believed those opinions. I believed them so hard that I stopped looking. I stopped hoping. I stopped even imagining a future where someone might kiss me goodnight without it feeling like a scene from a movie I wasn't qualified to audition for. That's the thing about heartbreak, it doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your imagination. You forget how to picture yourself happy because you've spent so many years practicing sadness. I went on exactly 0 dates for the first 18 months after the divorce. 0. Not because nobody asked, because every time someone showed interest, my brain would run a rapid-fire highlight reel of everything that could go wrong. He won't like my accent. He won't understand why I still talk to Mark. He won't want to deal with Leo's nightmares or Moya's pink cup or the fact that I sometimes cry at commercials about dogs because Sunny is getting old. And I'm not ready to think about that, so I stayed safe. I stayed single. I stayed in my apartment with my children and my YouTube channel and my carefully constructed routine that left no room for surprises. And I told myself that this was enough. That I didn't need love. That I had the children. And the children were everything. That children are not everything. That's a beautiful lie that single parents tell themselves to survive. But it's still a lie. Children need their parents to be whole people. Not martyrs, not monks, not robots who have deactivated the part of their software that desires connection. The turning point happened at Leo's soccer game. Not a dramatic turning point. A small one. The kind that only makes sense in retrospect. I was sitting on the bleachers, drinking lukewarm coffee from a thermos, watching Leo chase the ball in the wrong direction. Next to me was a man I had seen at a few games before. His name was David. He was also a single parent. His daughter, Emma, was on Leo's team. We had exchanged nods and good game comments, but never a real conversation. That day, Leo scored a goal accidentally for the other team and I laughed. Not a polite laugh. A real laugh. The kind I had forgotten I had. David looked at me and said, "You have a great laugh." I said, "Thanks. I haven't used it in a while." He said, "Me neither," and that was it. That was the beginning, not a lightning bolt. Not a romantic comedy moment with a montage and a soundtrack. Just two tired parents on a bleacher, admitting that they had forgotten how to laugh, and then laughing about it anyway. We talked for 20 minutes after the game, then exchanged numbers. Then texted for 2 weeks before he asked me to coffee. The most boring, low-stakes, non-romantic date option in existence. I almost said no. My brain ran its highlight reel. He won't like your accent. He won't understand. You're too complicated. Stay safe. Stay single. Stay in your apartment. But then I remembered the rainy Tuesday. I remembered the blanket over my head. I remembered that playing it safe had never actually made me safe, it had just made me small. So I said yes. The coffee date was awkward. Very awkward. We talked about soccer. We talked about the weather. We talked about the traffic on the I-5. For an hour, we circled around everything that actually mattered, like to planes waiting for permission to land. And then, as we were leaving, David did something that terrified me and thrilled me in equal measure. He said, "I'm going to say something, and I'm going to say it badly. So please forgive me in advance." I nodded. He said, "I don't care about your divorce. I don't care about your ex-husband. I don't care about the accent, or the late nights, or the fact that you probably have 17 different kinds of anxiety that I don't know about yet. I just know that you laughed at a 6-year-old's own goal. And that laugh made me feel like maybe I could laugh again too. So I'd like to see you again. Not to fix you, not to save you. Just to sit next to you on a bleacher and watch our children chase the wrong ball. I cry, in the coffee shop, in front of everyone." David handed me a napkin. He did not panic. He did not run away. He just waited. And that waiting, that calm, unpanicked presence was the sexiest thing I had ever experienced. Here's what I learned about love after divorce. Love is not about finding someone who completes you. You are already complete. You were complete on the bathroom floor. You were complete under the blanket. You were complete when you thought you were invisible. Love is about finding someone who sees your completeness and doesn't try to add or subtract anything. Someone who says, "You are already enough, and I want to be near your enoughness." David and I took things slowly. So slowly. We dated for 3 months before I introduced him to the children. We dated for 6 months before he met Mark. We dated for a full year before we said I love you. And every step of the way, I checked in with myself. Am I doing this because I'm lonely? Am I doing this because society says I should? Am I doing this because I'm trying to prove something to my mother or my ex-husband or my own insecure inner voice? The answer, every time, was no. I was doing it because David made me laugh. Real laugh. The stomach-hurting kind. And because he never once asked me to sound more American. He loved my accent. He said it reminded him that the world is bigger than Seattle. He loved that I still called Mark to check about weekend plans. He said it showed that I was a good mother and a good human. He loved that I cried at dog commercials. He said it meant I had a soft heart that hadn't been ruined by everything it had been through. A new kind of love story is not about forgetting the past. It's about integrating the past into who you are now. David knows about the silent war. He knows about the bathroom floor. He knows about the rainy Tuesday. He does not see these things as red flags. He sees them as proof that I am strong, that I have survived, that I know what I want and what I will never tolerate again. That is the gift of failing at something. You learn, you grow. You become someone who can recognize real love because you have already seen the fake kind up close. Today, David and I are still together, not married. Maybe someday. Maybe not. We don't need a piece of paper to prove what we have. What we have is bleacher love, coffee love, laughing at the wrong goal love. It's not the love story I imagined when I was 24 and fresh off the plane. It's better because it's built on truth instead of fantasy, on scars instead of smooth skin, onto people who have failed at love before and are therefore much better at recognizing the real thing. If you are learning English and also learning to love again or learning to love yourself again, take this from my story. You don't need to be perfect to be loved. You don't need to hide your accent, your past, your complications. The right person will not ask you to be anyone other than the person who laughs at own goals and cries at dog commercials. And the same is true for your English. The right audience, the people who need to hear your story, will not demand perfection. They will demand honesty. They will demand you. So give them you, accent, mistakes and all. The children's letter, you know what the loudest sound in the world is. It's not a jet engine. It's not a rock concert. It's not even a toddler throwing a tantrum in the middle of a grocery store because you refuse to buy the rainbow-colored sugar cereal. The loudest sound in the world is silence after a child says something so honest, so pure, so completely unexpected that your brain forgets how to process language. I experienced that sound on a random Wednesday afternoon in April, 2 years after the divorce, 1 year after David entered my life, and approximately 14 minutes after I had finished crying about something stupid like a burnt toast or a missing sock. Leo was 9. Maya was 7. They came home from school, dropped their backpacks on the floor because children are physically incapable of hanging backpacks on hooks no matter how many times you ask Canon. They did something unusual. They sat down on the couch on either side of me. No fighting, no asking for snacks, no arguing about which TV show to watch. Just sitting. Maya looked at Leo. Leo nodded. And then Maya pulled a folded piece of paper from her pocket and handed it to me. "We wrote you a letter," she said. "Read it out loud." My hands were shaking. I didn't know why. Maybe because children don't write letters to their parents unless something is very wrong or very right. I unfolded the paper. The handwriting was a mix of Leo's messy 3rd grade scrawl and Maya's careful, oversized letters with hearts dotting the I's. This is what it said. "Dear Mummy, we want to tell you something. Before the divorce, you were sad. We didn't know the word for it then. We just knew you didn't laugh. Now you laugh. You laugh at Daddy's dumb jokes when he picks us up. You laugh with David when he makes pancakes that look like dinosaurs. You laugh on the phone with Grandma even when she says things that are not funny. We are happy because you are happy, that's all. Love. Leo and Maya. T.S. Can we get a puppy? Sunny is old, and we want a puppy. but only if you're still happy. I read the letter 3 times. The first time, I couldn't see the words because my eyes were full of water. The second time, I laughed the real laugh. The stomach-hurting kind because of the PS. Because of course, there was a PS about a puppy. The third time, I just sat in the silence. The loudest silence in the world. The silence of a mother realizing that her children had been watching her more closely than she had ever known. That they had noticed the absence of laughter before she had. That they had been waiting, patiently, for years, for her to find her way back to joy. And that they had connected her happiness to their own in a way that was both beautiful and terrifying. Because here's the science part that every parent needs to understand. Children are emotional mirrors. They don't just see your happiness, they absorb it. They don't just notice your sadness, they carry it. Psychologists call this emotional contagion, and it works both ways. A parent's chronic stress can literally change a child's brain development, but a parent's genuine, authentic joy can do the opposite. It can build resilience. It can create safety. It can teach a child that happiness is possible, even after hard things. Leo and Maya were not happy because the divorce gave them 2 houses or 2 sets of toes or 2 birthday parties every year. They were happy because the divorce gave them a mother who finally stopped pretending. A mother who laughed at dumb jokes. A mother who let herself love again. A mother who burned toast and cried about socks, and then laughed about burning toast and crying about socks because that's what real people do. That letter changed something in me. Not dramatically, no fireworks, no orchestral swell. It changed me the way a small crack in a dam changes the water behind it, slowly at first, then all at once. I had spent so many years measuring my success by external things. Green card, marriage, house, children who looked happy on the outside, YouTube views, relationship status. None of those things had made me happy. They had just made me busy. But the letter made me realize that my children were not measuring me by any of those things. They were measuring me by one thing only. Was I laughing, real laughing? Not the I'm fine laugh. Not the please don't ask me any real questions laugh. The laugh that comes from a place of genuine, unguarded, slightly messy contentment. That was their metric. That was their letter. And by that metric, I was finally, after all those years, succeeding. Here's what I want you to take from this section of the story. You are probably measuring your English progress by the wrong things too. Number of vocabulary words memorized, grammar test scores, accent reduction ratings, whether you sound like a native speaker. Those are external metrics. They are the marriage, the house, the green card. They can make you busy. They cannot make you happy. The real metric, the children's letter metric, is much simpler. Can you say what you mean? Can you connect with another human being? Can you make someone laugh or cry or feel understood in English? Can you use this new language to express the actual, messy, imperfect person that you are? That is success. That is fluency. Not perfection. Connection. After I read the letter, I did 2 things. First, I hugged my children for approximately 400 years. Then I called Mark, not to talk about the letter that was mine. I called to tell him something I had never said out loud before. Thank you, I said, for the divorce. He laughed, real laugh. You're welcome, he said. For the record, I'm happier too. We didn't say I love you. That would have been weird, but we said something better. We said, see you at drop-off on Friday. Don't forget Maya's pink cup. And that, my friend, is the secret language of successful co-parenting. Not grand gestures, not dramatic apologies, just the quiet, consistent, boring work of showing up, being honest, and laughing when you can. That night, I taped the children's letter to my refrigerator, right next to the magnet of the Eiffel Tower that my mother brought from Paris, and the grocery list that still said buy milk from 3 weeks ago. Every morning, I make coffee, open the refrigerator, and read those 7 words. We are happy because you are happy. Those words are my North Star. They tell me what matters. Not views, not likes, Not the perfect American accent that I still don't have after all these years. Just happiness, real happiness, the kind that children can see. The kind that makes them write letters, the kind that makes them ask for a puppy because they know, deep in their tiny bones, that their mother is finally a person who can say yes to joy without waiting for permission. We got the puppy, by the way, a little golden fluff ball that Leo named Pancake and Maya renamed Sprinkle, and we eventually compromised on Sprinkle Pancake, which is the worst dog name in history, but also the best because it makes everyone laugh every time we say it. Sunny, the old golden retriever, tolerated Sprinkle Pancake with the weary patience of a senior citizen who has seen it all. And David, who is still in the picture, built a dog bed out of old wood and said every family needs a project in a tone that suggested he was practicing for a future that included more than just dating. The children's letter taught me something else too. It taught me that my happiness was not selfish. For years, I had believed that putting myself first was a betrayal of my children, that a good mother sacrifices everything, that a good mother doesn't date, doesn't laugh aloud, doesn't spend money on herself, doesn't prioritize her own mental health over her children's activities. That is a lie, a dangerous, exhausting, joy-killing lie. A good mother fills her own cup so she has something to pour. A good mother models happiness so her children know it's allowed. A good mother laughs at the soccer game, dates the nice man, gets the puppy, and burns the toast without apologizing. Because that real, imperfect, visible happiness is the greatest gift you can give your children. More than piano lessons, more than organic vegetables, more than a perfect SAT score. Just happiness. Real, messy, laughing at dumb jokes happiness. That is what Leo and Maya were asking for in their letter. Not more stuff. More joy. And joy, it turns out, is the best English teacher too. Because when you are joyful, you stop being afraid. And when you stop being afraid, you start speaking. You make mistakes, you laugh at them, you try again, you get a puppy, you name it something ridiculous. And somehow, magically, the words start to flow. Not perfect words, real words. Your words, the words that make your children write you letters. Can divorce be a happy ending? Here's the question that everyone asks me, usually in a hushed voice, like they're confessing a sin or asking for directions to a secret speakeasy. But seriously, can divorce really be a happy ending? Isn't that just a nice story you tell yourself so you don't feel like a failure? I love this question because it's the right question. It's the question I asked myself on the bathroom floor, under the blanket on the rainy Tuesday, and in the car after Thanksgiving dessert at Mark's parents' house. It's the question that kept me honest when I wanted to pretend. And here's my answer. After 3 years of divorce, 2 years of co-parenting, 1 new relationship, 1 terrible dog name, and more pizza Fridays than I can count. Yes, divorce can be a happy ending, but only if you redefine what happy ending means. See, we've been sold a very specific, very narrow version of the happy ending. It comes from Disney movies, romantic comedies, and every wedding toast you've ever heard. The happy ending looks like this. You meet the one, you fall in love, you get married, you live in a house with a white picket fence. You have 5 children and a golden retriever named Buddy. You grow old together, still holding hands, still finishing each other's sentences, still madly in love until the day you die peacefully in each other's arms while soft music plays in the background. That is the script. And anything that deviates from that script, divorce, single parenthood, co-parenting, dating again after 40 is automatically a failure, a tragedy, a sad ending with a frowny face. But here's what I've learned. That script is not a happy ending. That script is a fantasy. And fantasies, by definition, are not real. Real happy endings are much messier, much stranger, and much more interesting than the Disney version. Real happy endings involve burnt toast and forgotten permission slips, and ex-husbands who text you about dentist appointments. Real happy endings involve crying in coffee shops and naming your dog Sprinkle Pancake and explaining to your children why mummy has a new friend named David. Real happy endings are not endings at all. They are continuations. They are the ongoing, everyday practice of choosing happiness even when the script has been thrown out the window. So let me answer the question directly, with all the honesty I have. Is my divorce a happy ending? For Mark and me, absolutely. Not because divorce is fun. Divorce is not fun. Divorce is paperwork and lawyers and dividing up who gets the toaster. Divorce is telling your 6-year-old that mummy and daddy will live in different houses now. Divorce is watching your child draw houses without doors. None of that is fun. But here's what divorce gave us that marriage could not. Divorce gave us peace. The silent war ended the day we signed the papers. No more pretending. No more walking on eggshells. No more sleeping in separate rooms and wondering if this was really the rest of our lives. Divorce gave us honesty. We stopped lying to each other and to ourselves. We admitted that we had made a mistake, a beautiful, well-intentioned mistake that gave us 2 incredible children, but a mistake nonetheless. And admitting that mistake was not weakness. It was the strongest thing we ever did. Divorce gave us a new kind of relationship. A better kind. A friendship without the pressure of romance. A partnership without the expectation of forever. Mark and I are better ex-spouses than we ever were spouses. We argue less. We laugh more. We respect each other more now than we did in the last 3 years of our marriage. That is not a failure. That is a miracle. And here's the part that still shocks me. Divorce gave my children a happy ending too. Not immediately. For the first few months, they were confused and sad. Leo had nightmares. Maya wet the bed. But within a year, they were thriving. Why? Because they had 2 parents who were finally happy. Happy apart. Happy co-parenting. Happy enough to laugh at soccer games and eat pizza together on Fridays and sit through awkward Thanksgiving desserts without killing each other. Psychologists have studied this extensively. The single biggest predictor of a child's well-being after divorce is not whether the parents stay together. It is the quality of the co-parenting relationship. Children do better with 2 happy parents who live apart than with 2 miserable parents who live together. Think about that. Your child's happiness does not depend on you staying married. It depends on you being happy. And if divorce is the path to your happiness, then divorce is the best gift you can give your child. I know that sounds radical. I know it goes against everything your grandmother, your priest, and your own anxious inner voice have told you. But it is supported by decades of research. The University of Virginia did a longitudinal study following children of divorce for 20 years. The ones who did best were not the ones whose parents stayed together for the kids. The ones who did best were the ones whose parents separated amicably, co-parented consistently, and went on to live happy, fulfilling lives of their own. Because children learn by watching. They learn what love looks like by watching their parents. And if what they are watching is to people who are miserable, resentful, and silent, they learn that love is misery. That is not a lesson you want to teach. On the other hand, if they watch to people who respectfully, kindly, bravely choose to separate, so that everyone can breathe, they learn that love is not about suffering. Love is about freedom. Love is about choosing what is healthy over what is familiar. That is a lesson worth teaching. So yes, my divorce is a happy ending, but it's not the ending of my story. It's the ending of one chapter and the beginning of another. The chapter called The Marriage That Didn't Work ended, and a new chapter began. The chapter called The Co-Parenting Friendship. Then another chapter. The Single Mother Who Learned to Laugh Again. Then another. The Unexpected Love with a Man Who Likes My Accent. My story is still being written. Every day, I add a new sentence. Some days the sentence is beautiful. Today Leo scored his first real goal, in the right direction. Some days the sentence is boring. Today I did laundry and forgot to buy milk again. Some days the sentence is hard. Today Maya cried because she missed having both parents in the same house. But every day, the story continues, and it is a happy story. Not because everything is perfect, because I am the one writing it now. For 8 years, I let my marriage write my story. I was a supporting character in someone else's narrative. The immigrant wife, the struggling English speaker, the woman who was never quite enough. But after the divorce, I picked up the pen, I started writing my own story. And that, my friend, is the definition of a happy ending, not a perfect life. A self-authored life, a life where you make the choices, even the hard ones, even the scary ones, and you live with the consequences, and you grow, and you learn, and you laugh, and you cry, and you keep going. That is what I want for you. Not a perfect English accent, a self-authored English voice, a voice that makes mistakes, that has an accent, that sometimes says sheep when you meant shit, and then laughs about it. A voice that tells your story, exactly as you are, without apology. So can divorce be a happy ending? Yes. Can learning English be a happy journey even if you never sound like a native speaker? Yes. Can you fail at something, a marriage, a test, a job, and still end up happy? Yes. 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 The secret is to stop measuring your life against the fantasy script. The white picket fence, the perfect fluency, the Instagram perfect family. Those scripts are lies. They are designed to make you feel inadequate, so you buy things, take courses, stay in situations that are slowly killing you. Your real life, messy, imperfect, beautifully unscripted, is the only life you have. And it can be a happy ending starting right now, not tomorrow. Not after you learn 500 more vocabulary words. Not after you find the perfect partner or fix your marriage or get that promotion. Right now. With the accent you have. With the children you have. With the ex-husband you have. With the burnt toast and the missing socks. And the dog named Sprinkle Pancake. Right now, you can decide that this is your happy ending. Not because everything is fixed. Because you are done waiting for permission to be happy. That is what divorce taught me. That is what I'm teaching my children. And that is why I'm teaching you through the slow English story. You don't need a perfect marriage to have a happy ending. You don't need perfect English to have a happy ending. You just need the courage to write your own story. One imperfect sentence at a time. Practice with my story. You've made it to the final section of this 90-minute slow English story. And if you're still here, I want you to know something before we go any further. You are not the same person who clicked on this video. You've sat through a divorce, a silent war, a Thanksgiving dessert, a rainy Tuesday, a children's letter, and a dog named Sprinkle Pancake. You've heard my accent, my mistakes, my laughter, and my tears. And whether you realize it or not, your brain has been doing something magical in the background. It has been learning English not through rules or drills, but through meaning, through emotion, through a story that actually mattered to you. That is how language acquisition works. By the way, the science is clear. Stephen Krashen, the famous linguist, proved decades ago that we learn languages best when we receive comprehensible input. Messages we understand that are also interesting or compelling. Not when we memorize verb tables. Not when we force ourselves to repeat phrases like a parrot. When we are so engaged in a story that we forget we are learning a language at all. That is what I have tried to give you in this video. A story so absorbing that the English became invisible. A story that made you feel something: anger, sadness, hope, laughter, because feeling is the glue that sticks words to your memory. So now, in this final section, I want to do something practical. I want to take 5 sentences from my story and show you how to practice them for listening, reading, and speaking, slowly, clearly, without pressure. Not because you need more grammar, because you need more confidence. And confidence comes from small, repeatable wins. Let's begin with sentence 1. From section 1. When I was standing in the shower asking the question that started everything. Here it is. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was actually the best thing disguised in sweatpants and 3 weeks of crying? Listen to that sentence again, slowly. What if the worst thing that ever happened to you was actually the best thing disguised in sweatpants and 3 weeks of crying? Now read it with your eyes. Notice the rhythm. The long what if at the beginning, setting up a possibility. The contrast between worst and best. The funny, specific image of sweatpants and 3 weeks of crying. That image is what makes the sentence memorable. Your turn. Read it out loud. Don't worry about your accent. Don't worry about perfection. Just let the words come out of your mouth. What if the worst thing that ever happened to me was actually the best thing? Change the you to me if you want to make it personal. Practice it 3 times. The first time, whisper. The second time, say it normally. The third time, say it like you mean it, like you're asking yourself the question for real. That is not studying. That is rehearsing your own life. Sentence to comes from section 5. The hardest conversation with my children. Mommy and Daddy love you very much. That will never change. But we have decided that we will not be husband and wife anymore. This sentence is a masterclass in delivering difficult news in simple, clear English. Notice the structure. First, the reassurance. We love you. That will never change. Second, the truth. But we have decided. No blame. No complicated words like divorce or separation. Just we will not be husband and wife anymore. A child can understand that. Now you practice. Imagine you are explaining something hard to someone you care about. A job loss. A move to a new city. A mistake you made. Use the same structure. First, the reassurance. I care about you. That will never change. Then the truth. But I have decided to. Say it out loud. Fill in your own situation. The grammar is simple. The courage is not. Practicing this sentence teaches you more than 50 grammar exercises ever could. It teaches you how to be honest in English. Sentence 3 comes from section 7. The cultural differences at Thanksgiving. You will always be Leo and Maya's mother. That means you will always be family. Even if you're not my daughter-in-law anymore. This was Mark's mother speaking to me. Notice the power of always. Repetition creates emphasis. Always be the mother. Always be family. And then the contrast. Even if you're not my daughter-in-law. This sentence is a beautiful example of how English uses even if to acknowledge a change without losing connection. Practice it. Say, you will always be my friend. That means you will always matter to me. Even if we don't see each other often, change the words. Make it your own. Say it to someone in your life. Or just say it to yourself in the mirror. This is not just vocabulary practice. This is relationship practice in English. Sentence comes from section 10. The children's letter. We are happy because you are happy. 7 words, 7 of the most powerful words I have ever received. Notice the cause and effect. We are happy result because you are happy cause. English uses because to connect the simple sentences into one meaningful idea. Your turn. Make your own because sentence. I'm learning English because I want to tell my story. I am watching this video because I believe I can improve. I am still here because I didn't give up. Say that last one out loud. I am still here because I didn't give up. Feel the difference between reading silently and speaking aloud. Speaking activates your mouth, your breath, your whole body. That is how English becomes yours. Sentence 5 comes from section 11, the answer to the big question. You don't need a perfect marriage to have a happy ending. You don't need perfect English to have a happy ending. You just need the courage to write your own story. One imperfect sentence at a time. This is the longest sentence we've practiced. But it's actually 3 sentences with a beautiful parallel structure. You don't need X to have Y. Repeated twice. Then the punchline. You just need the courage to write your own story. One imperfect sentence at a time. Say it slowly. Break it into chunks. You don't need perfect English. Pause. To have a happy ending. Pause. You just need the courage, pause, to write your own story. Pause. One imperfect sentence at a time. Now say it all together. Don't rush. This is not a race. This is your story. Here is my challenge to you for the next 7 days. Every morning, when you wake up, take one of these 5 sentences. Read it out loud 3 times. Close your eyes and say it from memory. Then, before you go to bed, say it again. That's less than 2 minutes a day. No apps, no flashcards, no stress. Just repetition with meaning. After 7 days, you will not have memorized the sentence. You will have internalized it. It will live in your mouth, in your breath, in your bones. And then you will start making your own sentences, in your own voice, with your own accent, telling your own story, because that is what learning English is really about. Not passing a test, not impressing a native speaker, not erasing where you came from. It is about adding a new tool to your toolbox so you can write the story you were always meant to write. My story is not over. Leo is 10 now. Maya is 8. David and I are still laughing on bleachers. Mark and I still text about dentist appointments. Sprinkle Pancake the dog just chewed up my favorite shoes, and I yelled at her in English. And then I laughed because my yelling still has an accent, and that's fine. That's more than fine. That's my happy ending, still being written. One imperfect sentence at a time. Now it's your turn. Take these 5 sentences, practice them slowly, and then go write your own story. Not tomorrow. Today. With the English you have right now. That's all for today. I'll make more similar videos in the future. Please subscribe to watch. Before you click away, stop for just 10 seconds. You've just spent 90 minutes with me through divorce, tears, Thanksgiving pie, a puppy named Sprinkle Pancake, and 5 sentences that can change the way you speak English forever. But here's the thing. This video is not the end. It's the beginning of something bigger, your beginning. Because right now, somewhere inside you, there's a voice that has been waiting to be heard in English. A story only you can tell. An accent that is not a flaw but a fingerprint. And the only thing standing between you and that voice is the fear of sounding imperfect. So here's my challenge to you. Don't just watch. Don't just practice the 5 sentences alone in your room. Do this right now. Take your phone, open the comments, and write 1 sentence. Just 1. In English. About anything. About how you feel. About your own story. About the word sweatpants making you laugh. I don't care if it has mistakes. I care that you start. Because the moment you write that sentence, you stop being a passive learner and become an active storyteller. And that is the secret that no language app will ever teach you. If this video touched you, if you want more slow English stories about real life, real love, and real imperfect happiness, then hit that subscribe button right now. Not because I need the numbers, because you need the reminder every week in your subscription feed that you are not alone, that your English is enough, and that happy endings come in all shapes, accents, and dog names. Subscribe, turn on the bell, and then go write your sentence. I'll be there in the comments, reading every single one. Your story starts now. Type it.